And welcome to Kyle's Corner with Kyle Koller, and I'm Kyle Koller. On today's podcast, I'm going to be covering one topic and one topic only, and that is Season 2 of Stranger Things. So, if you have not watched Season 2 or even Season 1 of Stranger Things, I would suggest that right now you pause this fantastic podcast, go watch those, and come back and resume listening to this most phenomenal of podcasts. Today's podcast is brought to you by Tonality Productions, my production company. That's it. That's who it's brought by. Check me out, tonalityproductions.com. Also, New Belgian Beer, good people. We're doing stuff together a lot, and that's a lot of fun. Drink their beer. If you got to drink beer, drink New Belgium. Also, Kyle Lint, my mechanic, good dude, got car shint, take it to Lint. And that's about it. So we're going to jump right into Season 2 of Stranger Things. All right, so there's going to be a lot of spoilers. I'm going to talk in depth about who is what and what is who and how, what with whom and how many with the whats and the nows and the how comes and the wherevers. Of Season 2. But in order for us to dive into Stranger Things Season 2, we need to take a quick recap and look at what was Season 1. Season 1 of Stranger Things came out of nowhere. It showed up on my Netflix queue. I had no idea what it was. I had not heard anything about it, but I just knew this was something that I kind of had heard a little buzz about from friends, but I hadn't seen a big, hey, it wasn't on the headlines of Netflix. It wasn't this big deal. It wasn't a must-watch. It just showed up on my Netflix queue one day, and I watched the first episode and thought it was pretty good, and then by the end of the second episode was completely hooked, finished the rest of it in one sitting. It was that good. And when you have something like that, so kind of comes out of nowhere and then blows up, you can't help but really that's kind of part of the quality of what makes it good is that you got to tell people about it. You got to show people it. You got to tell people, hey, check this out. You're really going to like this. You're really going to like that. And it's not some big advertisement on the side of a bus or some big thing on the internet. It's just kind of a word of mouth thing, and you get to watch it grow. The other thing that was great about Stranger Things Season 1 was the 80s nostalgia of it, which we had not seen, and there was all this stuff with the music that kind of had this John Carpenter 80s horror movie vibe, and the intro, which kind of felt that same thing, and then everything was so 80s nostalgia, and the kids were so good at acting, and it's kind of the show that, yeah, you knew who Matthew Modine was, and you knew who Winona Ryder was, but for the most part, it was a cast of unknowns and a storyline unlike anything we'd ever seen. So you're kind of, all of those created this awesome show that you wanted to tell everybody about. And with this world that we live in of binge-worthy television, Stranger Things really capitalized on it in that first season. And then I kind of got worried with the second season, like, will it be able to live up to the hype? Will it be able to capture that same excitement that we had in Season 1 with a new season where the kids are all famous now and it's got all the advertising money? Season 2 had a commercial on the Super Bowl. You can't get any bigger of an advertising budget or advertising presence than having a commercial on the Super Bowl. Netflix went all in on Season 2 of Stranger Things, and that was their big pivotal, like, this is what we do now. We are Netflix, and we do Stranger Things Season 2. Bigger than House of Cards, bigger than Love, bigger than any other, bigger than The Crown, bigger than any of the other original content that Netflix had made. This was kind of its crowning jewel. And even for other platforms like Hulu or Amazon Prime, this was the biggest thing out there. So, Season 1 was awesome. Season 2, right out of the gate, it itches the Stranger Things scratch, or scratches the itch, whatever. But, it's got that 80s nostalgia. It picks up where it left off. The kids are awesome. They're doing the Ghostbusters thing. It's really cool. It's really cute. It's fun. It's fine. It's introducing a couple of new characters, and everything is cool. And so it's going along and everything seems okay. If you remember in season 1, the first episode was a little unfulfilling, but as you sat through it, you really got to feel the gravity of how good Stranger Things was as the season progressed. So season 1 or episode 1 of season 2, you have that same vibe. It's just kind of there and you're into it and you like it. And for me, I knew I was going to binge the whole thing in one sitting. So I knew that episode 1, it's fine. It introduces the title of the show, of the episode, is Mad Max. It introduces Max, who's this girl who kind of is trying to assimilate herself into a new school. She gets somewhat adopted by Will and the rest of the gang. And Bill, her older brother Billy's an asshole, and he was a little over the top, in my opinion. He was a little too on the nose of an 80s bully with the mullet and the eye rock and the whole thing. But that's fine. That's the Duffer Brothers really doing a great job. The first episode starts with a completely separate storyline with a girl, robbery happening, and a girl makes the cops think that there was a tumbling bridge and there wasn't one, and then it shows that she has a mark on her arm that says 008. That's very similar to what 11 had in season 1. Another thing we kind of see is that what's happened with 11 and Hooper and all that stuff. So it goes on, and season 2 is kind of same as first, and on and on and on. And then we find that there's a lot of different storylines getting grown out. You see that 11 has been kind of, I don't know what you call it by Hopper. I don't know if you would call it held hostage or if you would call it taken care of, good, bad, or whatever, but he had her kept in a cabin in the woods by herself, and that was kind of a weird storyline. Dustin's the kid with the teeth and the pearls, that kid. Great actor in this thing. All the kids are wonderful. Once again, even 11, phenomenal. He finds a little slug that is turning into something that he doesn't know what it is, and it's kind of a interesting storyline. Will is still having episodes of his old flashbacks from the Upside Down. They're taking him to a doctor who's played by Paul Reiser. And this is going to lead me into a point of the season 2 that I don't know if I liked, and that was Paul Reiser, Sean Astin, 2 characters that are new to this season who are famous faces. Now, Sean Astin being in Goonies and Encino Man and kind of those older movies, and Rudy and stuff like that, it's kind of cool to see him play a character in this show, because he has somewhat of a nostalgic face and vibe to him. But, could have done with him, could have done without him. He did a good job playing Bob the Brain, I guess. He worked at a Radio Shack, which was kind of funny and tongue-in-cheek, but he was good. And then Paul Reiser, again, the problem that I had with this was both these characters were pretty pivotal to the season, and yet I couldn't help but notice that they looked... I just saw Paul Reiser. I just saw Rudy. And Mad About You... these other characters and shows that they have done in the past, whereas that first season, you just saw even Winona Ryder, who was crazy the whole time, her being crazy really helped into that role. So, it's moving along. The kids are great and doing their thing, and what we see is it starts to spread out. It starts to get bigger. 11 sneaks out of her house that Hopper has kept her, and he sees Will flirting with Max, and it kind of sends her over the edge. And Dustin has this thing they're looking for with that D'Artagnan, the little slug, and it's kind of sprawling out. In the meantime, Nancy and Will's brother are looking into where Barb is, and it's just getting wider and bigger, and all the characters are getting farther and farther apart. And then something fucking happened. Something that ruined season 2. Something that I believe the Duffer Brothers have to answer for, and that is episode 7, The Lost Sister. What the motherfuck was that? That was probably the worst episode of television I have ever fucking seen. If you've watched it, you would agree with me. It was terrible. There was no reason for this thing to be there. So 8, which was the character, which I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Having the superpower for people to see something that wasn't there, to be able to control minds to where you can make it look like a bridge is falling or a wall is being built or a toilet is being flooded or whatever, is a really unique and cool superpower. And I'm not a huge super comic book nerd guy, but that's a power I'd never really seen before. But they could have done such a better job of connecting 8 and 11. There was no reason whatsoever to make 8 and 11. 11 hops on a bus, goes to Chicago, and meets up with this ragtag misfit group of people, which was this asshole punk rock guy, this big giant buff black dude, 2 other useless chicks who just were too over the top 80s. They looked like they were in a hot, like the best part about Stranger Things, it was never over the top 80s, it was just the 80s. This was the only segment where it felt like this is a comic book and they're not taking this serious. They should immediately delete this episode. They could literally get rid of this episode and everybody would be fine without it. It was a terrible idea. I don't know whose idea it was, but get fucking rid of it. It was just terrible. Anyways, when you watch it, you'll get it. And even 11, I mean, she gets her hair slicked back and gets a black coat, and now she looks like a badass. And that was kind of the difference between season 1 and season 2. Season 1 had so many little iconic things, whether it was Hopper and his hat, 11 and her dress and the jacket and the Egos, all of that stuff. This new one didn't have any of those moments. There was never that thing that you were like, oh man, that's so cool. They have this new iconic thing. It was just a whatever season. I do have to say, I thought that we finally got justice for Barb. Bob the Brain dies, and I was sad because I really liked that character. Hopper was awesome, and he continues to do a great job. The kids, again, I can't tell you enough how good those kids are at acting. And Steve did a great job. Everybody did a really good job. I just thought that the story was a little flat. Overall, if I gave season 1 an A, I'm giving this thing a C, maybe a C+. It just wasn't very good as a season overall. Ends, and it gives you, your satisfaction that you've been wanting, but it really felt cheap and last kind of thrown together. It didn't really leave a whole lot open for another season, although I guess that they are shooting seasons 3 and 4 all at once. It didn't do anything. I felt like the season ended and we were right fucking back where we started. There was like one significant thing that changed, and that was 11 is like a known person now. That's like really all that happened. Which could have happened without all of this stuff. There wasn't a Christmas lights spelling out where Will was moment. They had this thing where he was drawing a map, and it felt like they were trying to get there, but it never really stuck. That happened a couple different times where it's like, yeah, they're trying to recreate something that happened in season 1, and it just didn't quite hit. They did a great job of not making it all about season 1. Like, it wasn't like she turned around and there was Egos all the time. They had a couple little references, but it wasn't over the top. There was one time when they mentioned, or they didn't even mention, but they're cleaning out the garage for Will, and Steve picks up some Christmas lights and just throws them out of the way. There were cute little moments like that. Nancy and Will's brother and Steve, that's a weird dynamic of love and weirdness that I don't really know if I cared about. Is that weird? But I don't know. I thought that it didn't live up to the hype. That much is for sure. It didn't live up to the hype. It definitely wasn't as good as season 1, and I really expected a lot more, and to be frank with you, it kind of fell flat. I know I might sound like an asshole, but watch it, and you probably will agree with me. It just wasn't as good. They really could have. The Duffer Brothers could have hit a fucking home run like they did with season 1 if they had put it out, and it was awesome. And it just wasn't awesome. That last scene with 11 and she's stopping the monster just felt like this big CGI'd thing. And you're sitting there and you're like, eventually she's gonna win, and then yeah. So it was really cute, though, at the junior high dance at the end. All this stuff that they do well, they did really well. It's when they try to get outside of their comfort zone and try to make something new. Just stick with what you're good at. TV, I mean that in general. The Sopranos was great because they stuck with what they were good at. And Breaking Bad was great because it stuck with what it was good at. Stick with what you're good at in television, and you'll last a lot longer than you will when you try to go bigger and try to expand the audience and all that stuff. Just do what you do and do it well. Other than that, I mean, I would recommend it if you do need to watch it. If you watch the first season, you like to watch the second season, and you'll kind of see where I'm coming from. So yeah, that's it. Stranger Things season 2. Love it, hate it, whatever. Let me know what you think. Email me at kylekoller@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening. This is Kyle's Corner with Kyle Koller, and I'm Kyle Koller. See you next time.